Yes, and I have
Thank
the
you.
honor today, Willem, of asking you a few questions. So I'm excited to kind of get your insights on where things are with logosynthesis. It's a wonderful opportunity to look back over 20 years as we mark the 20th anniversary of the discovery of the model. From the time which you share in your books. If anyone hasn't read them, I encourage them to do so. But you share Lenore's story. And at the time of the discovery of logosynthesis, you really delved into your expertise, your experience, your knowledge of science and spirituality so that you could recognize Lenore's distress as frozen energy, and you were able to empower her to use the power of words to shift that frozen energy. So, from that day, we are here now with so many different presentations of people that are using this model in their everyday work, in their everyday life, and we're excited for what lays ahead. So, to start, I'm going to ask a few questions to get a sense of logosynthesis as an integrative approach for caring for body, mind, and spirit. And can you explain how this model supports an integrative approach and why it's so powerful?
Yeah, of course, I don't know, but I will try to put a few things together. So the basic is that you're more than your body, you're more than your mind, your essence. And your essence manifests as a self on the planet with the body and with the mind. And that's already very integrative. So you're on this planet with a mission, and that mission offers you a set of tasks and roles in your environment, what we call the matrix. And what we're doing after these 20 years, that's how I understand it, we focus on the dynamics that are happening between essence and the matrix. The self, you as the person you are on this planet, you act as the interface. You can look at the self from a somatic, from a physical viewpoint. You can look at the self from a mental viewpoint or a psychological viewpoint. And you can look at the self from a spiritual viewpoint. So that's the integrative part. And in an ideal world, there is a constant free flow of energy between essence and the matrix. And this free flow can be disturbed by trauma, stress, whatever you call it. So that's the integrated framework, and that allows you to care for body, mind, and spirit. And the advantage of this view is that you can address an issue from all possible sources, from all possible directions, from philosophy, which I am very much into at this moment, to allopathic medicine, because you might need a doctor. You can look at it from a viewpoint of stress management in everyday life, to psychotherapy, coaching, workplace counseling. And in all these approaches, we can restore this energy flow through the power of words, and then people can find their mission and live their lives according to that mission. That's
Yeah, and so
just
we
in a
kind of,
nutshell.
it is a nutshell. It's a lot to digest.
Okay, you
So
can
when
look
we
at the
talk body,
recording.
mind, and spirit, we talk physical health is a big component of it, and sometimes it can be hard for us to really realize that you can use power of words to impact our physical health, and yet a lot of people report benefits from this area. So how do you see the model contributing to the physical healing through its energetic intervention?
Yeah, there's one simple explanation. Physical symptoms lead to stress and tension. Logosynthesis work helps you to reduce stress, and then you will be healed more easily. And if you're healthy, you feel better. That's the short statement. Uh, if you look at it from a more sophisticated explanation, then you can say an organism in flow is always healthy. You can't be ill if your energy is in flow. That can't happen. So every physical symptom is based on an imbalance in your energy system, bound energy, frozen patterns. And when you resolve those patterns, the body will heal by itself because your body is a healing thing. You have 4 billion cells in your body, and these are all cooperating to keep you healthy. And if you interfere with that energy flow, then you get sick. So we often see that clients notice improvements in chronic conditions. They can better relax, they're more vital. And these results show that energy, restoring the energy flow influences physical fitness, health. That doesn't mean you don't need to go to a doctor, but logosynthesis work can make the doctor's treatment more effective.
Right. Yeah. So that's a physical side. And then from a mental side, we talk about mental health issues. So anxiety and stress, as you mentioned, but also mental health disorders, that the ones that are defined by the DSM-5 classification. So how does logosynthesis compare resolving these issues compared to other psychological approaches?
Yeah, you, I don't hear uh, like to hear you saying other psychological
Oh,
approaches,
okay. Well, we all tend to
but
compare to what we know. So most
yeah.
of us here know other
So, but
psychological approaches.
it's beautiful because you get me there. So, if there is a diagnosis regarding mental health, you call it obsessive compulsive, you call it borderline, call it narcissistic. Uh, we first look at that what that means in energy terms. So you make a translation from the allopathic medicine to energy language. So everything is energy. Energy is bound or it's in flow. Energy belongs to you or it doesn't. And words move energy. That's the translation of every single medical diagnosis. Let's say medical doctors will have some troubles in accepting that, but these are working hypotheses for us to address the issue of frozen energy. So anxiety and stress arise when the self is overwhelmed by external pressures or internal conflicts or your history, trauma, and all these themes freeze the flow of your life energy. And what we often see is that traditional methods pay attention to your reactions to the environment. So you have a tension in your left arm and you have a physiotherapist treating the tension in your left arm instead of addressing an underlying energetic pattern, which might disturb you. So we dissolve the energy patterns that cause the disruption, and then you get back to clarity and focus, and you find a new balance in after a longer or a shorter time. And we see that we can often address simple issues in a short time, but for deeper processing of trauma, childhood, uh, adverse childhood experiences, that takes much more time. And it may be comparable to traditional psychotherapy, but in my experience, we have a depth we can reach, which is barely possible with other systems. So we need
Yeah.
all the information there is from the medical and psychological systems, but we translate and then we give it back to the system.
Okay. So we'll process that a bit as to what that
Yeah,
means. Yes.
yeah. Look
So
at the
then from
video.
the spiritual side, so that's body and like the physical, the mental, the spiritual side, we often recognize that spiritual health is important, but we often separate science and spirituality. And for me, what drew me most to this work is that I see both very clearly in the work. So logosynthesis has really helped a lot of people deepen their spiritual awareness, and it's regardless of what their religious affiliation may be or non-affiliation. So, can you talk to what
Uh,
you see as to why it's so powerful for individuals to support their own spiritual health?
Yeah, I think mainstream science, the mainstream science we have at this moment, almost completely ignores the spiritual dimension. It's a science of the matrix. It's a servant of the matrix, and its theories try to reduce every aspect of life into a material frame of reference. So there is no, let's say, coherent perspective on anything more than matter. So you know the story about the monkeys and the Encyclopedia Britannica, that those monkeys cannot write because that material perspective doesn't work. At the same way, the spiritual perspective is not included in let's say normal daily science. We look at more than one aspect of our existence. We're more than a body, we're more than a mind, we are essence. We are spirit beyond space and time. We are here with a mission, and your life has a meaning. Even if you don't have a clue what that meaning could be, that's the beginning of the work. But for, let's say, psychological theory, meaning is not an issue. It's about functions. Maybe they call it motivation, but they don't know where it comes from. Where does motivation come from? Motivation comes from essence, or it comes from biological and psychological needs. If your motivation is based on psychological and physiological needs, your life will be boring after a while. If you connect your spiritual mission, you can live a full life instead of a life which is directed towards fulfilling needs. Uh, so, in the sorry, in the initial stages of my work in logosynthesis, I put a very strong emphasis on the spiritual dimension. And in the meantime, I have come to the conclusion that the other side is just as important, so that yourself exists as an interface between essence and the matrix. And you're here with a mission, and to fulfill your mission, you have to enter the matrix, you have to meet people, you have to fulfill roles. And that's a very interesting field of exchange, interchange, interdependence, whatever you call it. And that makes life interesting. Life in the material field is boring, even if you're called Mark Zuckerberg and have a few billions on the side. Life which is only spiritual might be boring also because nothing is happening. Okay, I'm enlightened. So what do you do tomorrow?
Some days it
So,
sounds appealing, yes.
excuse me?
Some days it sounds appealing.
Yeah, sometimes yes. Okay, but let's say if you look back at your life and you look what you've done, and
Mhm.
if you focus too much on one field or the other, that's not very interesting and you're missing something. So we work on strengthening spiritual health by restoring the connection of the self to essence. That's one part, but it's just as important to focus on the matrix to live a meaningful life on this planet, in your corner of that wide matrix. I think that's what makes logosynthesis work so powerful with all your relationships and all your tasks in any stage of life.
Yeah. And I can relate to that. To me, that is a very powerful connection. So, so 20 years, Willem, 20 years.
Oh
And
yeah,
logosynthesis has evolved since you first introduced it. And there's some significant milestones. Can you maybe offer a little insight into this?
yeah. In fact, it began as a method. I saw things happening, so we have this story of Lenore, and thought, yeah, what can I do? So I noticed phenomena I didn't understand, and I noticed something could change. So I had my training in TA and NLP, whatever, EMDR, and I tried to play with it. I tried to develop something. And then we started working on the basic procedure. You find the trigger, you say sentences, two in the beginning, in the first book, later three, then four. And then we had a coherent basic procedure. That's how it evolved. And it's still the most important protocol we have. Later, we have discovered and developed additional methods for fear, trauma, grief, whatever applications. And we have, let's say, brought the basics together in the energy octagon. And that's still the core concept of the practitioner curriculum. So if you have had 4 or 5 training sessions or training seminars on the octagon, you start to realize what's possible. And then we started to apply the model across diverse fields like the psychotherapy, education, organization, coaching. And each development has reinforced the understanding and the importance of this dynamic essence, the self, and the matrix. So if that's not there, if you work in an organization and you are defined as a person by your role, your status, your money, something is missing. If you're a teacher and you don't teach from your heart, something is missing because people won't pick it up what you're saying. And I have presented new material every year in a masterclass, and much of that material has trickled down into the training and the books. So many initial masterclasses are now, you can find them back in the practitioner curriculum now. And I think that the 4 principles I just mentioned, so we are energy, energy belongs to you or doesn't, energy is in flow or it's bound, words influence energy. These are still the most important because you have to reduce everything to those 4 principles. That's why we get to the octagon. That's how we got to the dissociation theory and the comprehensive understanding of logosynthesis as a model for healing, development, and guidance. So that's, in a nutshell again, what happened in 20 years.
Yeah, and so how has that initial vision really expanded over the years as the method started to gain more international recognition?
Yeah.
Because you've been here to Canada to train, you've been all over the world to train. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I must disappoint you. I don't have a vision.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a visionary. I never think about how things could be or could have been. I've never in my life made a business plan or a budget. I never have any visions, dreams, or whatever plan. So the only things in my agenda are a seminar in Paris in April, a seminar in Holland in May, a seminar in Switzerland in March and September. That's my plan. It's the only plan I have.
And you'll
And
share
from
those in the
there,
link for us later.
excuse me?
You'll share those in the link for us later.
Yeah, okay. And I'm a very rational person. So I'm attached to the present and I also have a strong intuition. So I'm good at recognizing opportunities. So if you invite me to Canada, I will check, does it fit my calendar and my mission? And I will come to Canada. If you don't invite me, tant pis, in French. Okay, so I'm good at recognizing opportunities, accepting them as ways to learn, and have a very short connection between an idea and its practical realization. So if someone asks me, can you give a seminar about logosynthesis and, let's say, relationships or traveling to Mars, I think, oh, that's an interesting connection. I'll make that. I'll think about it. And I have a continuous stream of ideas, and there's always a lot to do. So I only make plans for the next year, and the next step comes when I make this one. It's like living here in the mountains. I climb a mountain, and if I'm at the top, I can see the next one. I can't see this. Okay, I can read a map eventually, but it is not how I function. So I'm working on a book about logosynthesis in the body since 2 years together with Raya. And then I had the idea, oh, we need a lexicon because so many people are working with logosynthesis. I must write down what I mean if I use a term, when I use a term. So I made a lexicon, will be published this year in French and in German and English. And okay, and then thought, oh yeah, I wrote so many pieces every week on Willem's Wednesday. So, oh, that could be a book too. So I put 50 essays together, and we have a book of 300 pages, and it will also appear this year. And what happens to the book about the body, I don't know, because I'm stuck in that one. And if I have made those two other books, I can have a fresh look, and I learned a lot about logosynthesis because I defined so much terms and wrote so much essays and posts and articles that will come, that book. I don't know when. So I don't say anything about the future. I do know when the future is here, and I'll have a sense of what I can do. So no vision.
Well, we look forward to the new books because it's very valuable for us to get
Okay.
clarity on the language and to have insights into the essays, which are very thought-provoking. So thank you. With the logosynthesis, a lot of it, it's still a new model. It's 20 years, but it's still a new model. And sometimes we can face challenges with introducing it to new people. And I'm curious, from your perspective, some of the key challenges that you faced when developing and promoting logosynthesis. And how did you address these, like how addressing it kind of shaped the evolution of logosynthesis?
Yeah, it started with the first challenge. I couldn't believe what was happening in front of my eyes. This was
Hmm.
so strange, the fact that it worked. And it took me years to leave my psychological knowledge and experience behind and realize that this was something completely new. It's fast, it's elegant, it's efficient, and it's powerful. And I heard myself say recently, when I was a psychologist,
Yeah.
and yeah, I learned to accept my own energy theory. And now, 20 years later, I'm truly convinced that everything is energy and that words can move it. Then the next challenge was that no one else believed it either. So, and I thought in the beginning that I could convince people by telling my story, and if I talk long enough, they would believe me. That
I hear you.
isn't, that doesn't work. So it also took me a long time to realize that people are not going to trade their favorite model for something more effective and elegant. They don't. So only seekers learn something new. And if you feel comfortable with CBT or psychoanalysis, you probably won't change your mind, and you don't need logosynthesis. These are my challenges, and I think it's the challenges you meet when you bring logosynthesis into the world. So this is not about you if they don't accept it, but look for people who want to learn and look for people who are searching and seeking.
Hmm. Yeah, and to that point, when I bring it out there, my biggest challenge has been if it bothers me, it's my work to do. I still hear your voice say that if something bothers me. And I'm like, no, I think it's their work. But yeah, that's been very liberating for me. So it's a challenge that I've been able to overcome, and I'm very grateful for that. So looking ahead, like, do you see promising developments in the medical and scientific communities that might further validate or expand the scientific understanding of logosynthesis and its mechanisms?
Yeah, I think that's one of the greatest challenges. So if you look at recent advances in neuroscience, epigenetics, quantum physics, it helps me to uh, deepen my own understanding of logosynthesis and how it works on the side of the body and the mind. There was research on language. I posted recently that every single word we say triggers an, something specific in the brain which has to do with energy. There is a language of energy systems. There is more thinking about consciousness as something beyond the brain. Many scientists still think that consciousness is in the brain. That's about the same as that my self is a part of my computer.
Hmm.
Instead of I'm the user and I'm using the computer, I'm using the mind, I'm using the body. So we can collaborate with scientists, but many scientists are not very interested in what we are saying because what we are saying doesn't exist in science. Energy, everything is energy. Okay, E is mc square, Einstein, we will want to believe it, but it's not present in psychology and medicine. If you don't believe that everything is energy, you don't believe that energy is bound or in flow. You don't believe that energy belongs to you or it doesn't. And you don't believe that words influence energy. So that's difficult. So integrating essence in the discipline that's entirely matrix oriented, that's the biggest challenge we have because it places my work, our work, outside the scientific mainstream. And it's difficult to do research on method based on principles that are ignored or denied by the authorities in the field. So I see signs, and Suzanne is working on that, that we can do evidence-based research. And I also see that there is a space for a new paradigm, but we have to expect a lot of resistance, rejection, and denial. I think the time is on our side, but I'm not overly optimistic, to say it gently.
Yeah, and to me, logosynthesis offers such a clear intervention. It offers such a significant delta. The results are, immediate, sustained. So I always say it is researchable. It's just not researched. And I'm encouraged with the work in mental imagery that's in the medical literature now, how that can maybe fit into what we're doing. So it's to find our place in that as well. So, but it will come.
Yeah.
But we have to start wrapping up. I'm just curious if you can maybe wrap it up, given that we're all sitting in a place in the world right now where there's a lot of change and uncertainty. Today, I'm thinking of Lori Hobbs, who's going to be presenting later, and the fires in California. And I know that they're close to her home, so we're thinking of you, Lori. Um, all this change and uncertainty can make it very distressing, even if we don't really recognize it. And how can logosynthesis support this? How can it support us in our personal journeys in today's complex world?
Yeah, I think that many people depend on the matrix for their identity, for their security, for their relationships, for their work, for everything that is, let's say, on this side of death and what comes after. And I think that Logsins can help you to become less dependent and to become interdependent in the sense that you are on the interface of essence. You are eternal, you're an eternal being, and you're here in time. And I think if people realize that they are not a product of the matrix and that maybe the matrix can become a product of themselves, that will be very helpful. That won't work for everybody at this moment because it also depends on the frequency on which you are vibrating. But as soon as you realize that you are more than a body, you're more than a mind, and that you are here with your mission, and you don't need any recognition or support. It's nice to have, but you don't need to. If you're in contact with why you're here, you can, let's say, reach a lot, reaches, you can reach more than you think once you know who you are, and you are an eternal being. Is that enough?
Is that a good place to leave it? That
Okay.
is thought-provoking for each of us, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Cathy, for having me here.
Yes, and we might need to have a follow-up conversation on this that we can share later. But thank you.
Okay.